Hello, my name is Tim Lehealy, and in this video we're going to go over the filter widget. It's a pretty extensive widget, so this video will probably be a little bit longer than normal. The topics we're going to cover are an overview, using filters, removing them, exporting them, saving them, tags, which is a special subsegment of filters, and permissions. So let's hop in and do just that. First, I'm going to open the filter widget. I'm also going to open the grid because that's how we see the effects of our filters. So the first thing we should note is there are a bunch of different subcategories here. You can read them off same as I can: tags, general, email, document content, so on and so forth. Let me quickly explain what each of them is. Tags are where your labels, issues, and custom categories all reside. So you can open them up and you can see also there's this wonderful category of viewed documents. It will show you what documents have been viewed. General is if you're an FTK user, your Evidence Explorer. It's also got custodian and object types. Email is, of course, email. Document content is things like topic clustering, people, email addresses, a bunch of metadata, if you will, or excuse me, content we extract out of documents. KFS is known file filters, or denisting if you're a legal user. Cerberus is for executable analysis. It's quite extensive. We don't yet have videos on Cerberus. We need some videos, but when we do have videos, we're going to cover this more extensively. We're just going to kind of gloss over it here. Geolocation is the ability to find objects by country name or by city name. It's pretty cool. Happens automatically as a function of processing. And then files is the most important one. It's really sort of, if you will, your metadata filters, where if you want to sort of filter by extension, by category size, whatever, all that stuff is here. So those are the generic categories. Each one of these can be permissioned. I will show you that when we go over permissioning. There are, however, a lot of these. So if you don't know where the thing you're looking for is, there is a little search bar here. So if you're looking for file extension, you can just type out EX, and there you go, files extensions right under files. Back up. So that'll help you sort of find the filters you want. There are a number of different options up here that I think we should go over. I'm going to ignore the saving filter here. This is a legacy. It will, in fact, save the filter for you, but there are better ways to do it now, so I'm going to ignore that. We probably will get rid of that. There are, however, these two things, which is export to Excel, or export only the selected filters to Excel. These are very powerful in terms of being able to quickly get a summary of the data in your case. The filters represent the best, if you will, overall synopsis of what you have in your entire case. And so the ability to, after processing, just export these and send them to a client or send them to somebody and say, here's what's in the case, ends up being really powerful. There are so many. That is why we offer both the export everything, or just the selected one. If you only want to export the file filters, you can go in and check the ones you want and then export them. And I'll show you what those look like when we get a little bit farther along. There's the search, which we've shown already, and then there's lazy load. A lazy load is selected by default and should always be selected by default, because if you don't select it by default, this widget can take a half an hour to load depending on how large your data set is. Particularly the problem area is Evidence Explorer. If you don't have lazy load selected, it will try to load the entire Evidence Explorer, which can be enormous. Which brings us to these little buttons. Along each facet, or along each sort of folder, excuse me, you'll see a button like this, a refresh button. That is fundamentally connected to the lazy load. Because we haven't loaded some of these, you need a way as a user to load them. And we have done that with this little button here. So if we click on object types, you can see that that then loaded the object types. Now we can go deeper into that, and you have files and emails, and you would have to in turn click on that and wait for that to load, and there you go. And then you could start selecting things that you wanted, maybe graphics, emails, whatever. So that's what these work. They're particularly important when it comes to tags, because sometimes if you've added a label or done something and you want the counts of a tag to refresh, they won't naturally. You need to come in here and click this button, and then it will go re-get the labels and get the new counts if new counts are appropriate. In fact, I think this is upgraded by 1. I'm not entirely positive, but it doesn't matter either way. So those are some sort of key overview features, if you will. Now let's get into applying facets applying filters, removing them, things like that. Let's start down here in Files. Actually, before I do that, let me say one other thing. There have been a number of customers who have called the message board or help hotline or whatever and said, so weird things aren't working. All of a sudden, it's telling me I have no data or whatever, certain things aren't working. The first thing I generally do to diagnose is I open this filter widget and see if these filters have loaded. If they haven't loaded, it is generally because, let me show you. And I'm going to go to System Administration, System Values. If the install directory is wrong, if you have this information wrong, it won't be able to find the underlying file that's required to drive the filter. So if you ever get odd things happening, come in here and you see particularly that this file category is not loaded, you know you've got problems. That's the place to look, the administrative widget. But anyway, having covered that detour here, let's get back to what we were doing. We're going to go ahead and apply. Let's go into our categories. Let's look at all our documents. We click on this. The first time, it's worth noting, sometimes it's a little sticky. The first time you click on the first facet, it doesn't quite apply it. Click again, it will apply it. You do not need to double click to apply these. Just single click will work. If I just click on this, that should apply it. There you go. So now we've applied both documents and spreadsheets, and you can see we should have 106 documents, which we do. You see the 2 indicators, or several indicators actually, that the facet is applied. You see the facets right up here. You see the check marks right next to them here as well. It is important to note that when you select a folder filter, you've inherently selected all the ones underneath it. So by selecting documents, I'm going to get all the Adobes, all the HTML, all the Microsoft, and all the other documents. Now, let me show you how you remove them. Well, actually, before I show you that, there's one other indicator that a facet has been applied, and that's this familiar icon up here, which we've seen in many of the other videos. So let's go ahead and remove these. We can remove them in 3 different ways. We can double click here or click here again, and it will toggle to the not state. And then we click one more time and it will remove it completely. And we've gone to 103. We can likewise remove it by clicking here, this little red button here. And that will remove it completely. Or let me reapply it. Or we can remove all of the filters applied through the filter widget by clicking here. And that will remove it as well. So hopefully you saw when I was removing it by clicking on it directly, you saw that there are 3 states to a filter. The first is the one we've just been exploring, which is the applied state. We click on this and we get to the 103. If we click it again, we get to the second state, which is the not state. So let's go ahead and click on this. This is saying we want everything except for documents. And you can see that now we have the 1,342 we would expect. And then if we click one more time, we're going to remove it completely. and then we're back to the 1495. Almost everything has a not state, but you have to be careful when you're applying not states. You can get odd results. So let's go ahead and apply this document filters and spreadsheets, and we should get the 106. We got the 106. But now if we go not spreadsheet, you might intuitively think, well, shoot, not spreadsheet should give me every record, document or not spreadsheet. But the reality is what you've got here is an and. You've got documents and not spreadsheet is really just documents. So when applying the not operator, make sure you understand the context and how it's going to work. There's one other point I want to make about using ways to remove and apply facets. We talked about how you can remove them here. You can click on that and that will remove the facet. But you can also change the state here. You can see that this documents filter is applied, and I know that because of this check mark here. But if I click this again, it will go to the not state, and we get the 1300, 992 we were expecting. And if I click it one more time, it's going to remove it. It's the same as clicking down there. Okay, so let me show you exporting and exporting checked and just exporting in general. So we're going to go ahead and click on this. And then we're going to go and we're going to export all of this to Excel. So let's go ahead and click there. Exported it to Excel. Let's open. Don't actually, oh, I do have Excel on this machine. That's fantastic. Okay, we exported everything. You can see how it's arranged. I think it's quite nice, frankly. You can see the hierarchy done on columns. So this is the A column is the overall category, B is the various facets, and then underneath them and all the different file counts. Now you can see it's only exporting things that we have fundamentally loaded. So for example, let's see, we've got date modified, but if we go back into our data set, we'll see we don't have date accessed or date created. If we wanted date accessed and date created, we would simply need to load them. Now go ahead and repeat the process. Now if we scroll down, we should have date modified as well. Oh, excuse me, date accessed as well. Perfect. All right, now that's exporting everything. Let's talk about exporting just the checked stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and click here. And then let's once again repeat the process and open this. And you can see I had only checked that one, the filter, the Adobe, and so it's gone ahead and exported it for me. And you see positive means it's checked and no filters applied to this, but it's apparent, so it gets exported anyway. So there you go, that's exporting. When you export, you can see these pop-ups come up which show you what you're going to export, so you can kind of peruse them. Depending on your system, I believe sometimes they automatically shut down, sometimes they don't. But anyway, that's basically all I wanted to show you in terms of using, applying, removing generic facets. Now let's get on to saving, tags, and permission. So let's do saving. Again, we're not going to talk about this saving because I think it's really been circumvented by other methods of saving. Well, actually, no. If you're an administrator, you don't want to use this. But if you're a general user and you want to save a particular facet, you can go ahead and use this. And you can call this demo filter. And then that will be saved. And anytime you are on this machine, this filter will be available to you. So if I go ahead and apply that filter, It's the same thing in this case as applying the filter I had before, which I think was Adobe Documents. Let's go ahead and see. Yeah, I think that's Adobe Documents. Let's see. Yeah, Adobe Documents, same 14 we had. So that's how you can save there. But generally what you want in terms of save facets is for your administrator to build the facets you want. And the way they do that is they'll apply whatever filters they want. And they come in here to Admin. Then they go to Configure and Filters. And again, there's a video on this, but let's go ahead and just quickly show you. They create a new one, and we're going to call it Demo Filter. Well, let's be smart about it. Let's call it Adobe. And we want to make it default, and we're just going to go ahead and save it. Now we've created an Adobe filter, and that's going to be available anytime we need it straight in our grid as a default. Look at that right there, Adobe. If we didn't save it as a default filter, and instead let's go ahead and create it again. We'll do Adobe Quick, and we're just going to go ahead and save that. It's going to show up here. You can see that's Adobe Quick, and if we want to apply that, we can anytime just click on that and it will apply. So that's how we save filters. The last thing, well, now let's do tags. Okay, tags are only special for one reason. There's only one reason I'm showing you tags, and that's because you can, from within this interface, create issues, labels, and perform actions on them, categories. You can sort even, and you can create what's called the permissioning tag. We're not going to talk about this. This is explored in its own video, but let me just show you how we create a folder. Let's go ahead and, create a tag. We're on issues, so we're going to create a tag. And then we can change its name, edit, and call, edit demo. And now we've got an issue named demo. We can do the same thing we want to labels. We could create a label folder if we wanted. Let's go ahead and do edit, and we'll do demo folder. And we can create subtabs to that if we want. And edit. Call it test, and so on and so forth. We can also delete them here. You could saw that. You've got this delete. Yes. We can manage the permissions, as you see, sort of right here, permissions. If we want to, this will allow us to give this tag to certain users, depending on our own capabilities and permissions. And so on and so forth. So that's what I wanted to show you in terms of tags. Last thing I want to show you is on permissions. Everything in the filter widget is permissionable. It's such a powerful widget that we wanted to, but it's also very confusing, so we wanted to be able to configure it. So when we go to roles, if we create a new role, and we come over here to widget filters and click here, you can see all the categories we've been exploring up to date are also here. So you see issues, labels, categories, view documents, production set if we've got any. If we only want this person to be able to see issues, labels in this section, we just go ahead and click here. And those are the only two they'll be able to see. If we only want to give them Evidence Explorer, if we only want to give them file category, we can just go ahead and do that. We can, of course, give them everything. It's just by doing that. But all this stuff get permission, so if the user logs in, he's only going to see that which we've assigned him. There are a number of reasons you should almost always give a user labels, but again, that's covered in other videos. So I would just suggest if you're going to play with it now, please give them labels. You'll run into problems in a number of places if you don't. So anyway, that's all I wanted to show you for the filter widget. Pretty extensive video. There's a lot here to digest. So if you have questions, feel free to post. And as always, I hope this was helpful. Thank you very much.